Welcome to Globewise Entertainment. Today, we're diving into the world of cinema's most shocking controversies with 13 banned European films that shook the world. From daring directors to movies that pushed boundaries too far, these films sparked outrage, debate, and even censorship across countries. If you haven't subscribed to Globewise Entertainment, hit that button now so you never miss edible moments of movie history. And don't forget, tell us in the comments which of these banned films shocked you the most. 1. A Clockwork Orange, 1971. Stanley Kubrick's controversial masterpiece. When Stanley Kubrick released A Clockwork Orange in 1971, he had no idea just how much controversy his futuristic nightmare would stir. Based on Anthony Burgess' novel, the film explores a violent dystopia where teenage gangs rule the streets, indulging in brutality, theft, and shocking acts of ultraviolence. At its center is Alex Delarge, played by Malcolm McDowell, a charismatic yet terrifying anti-hero whose love of Beethoven clashes with his darker, sadistic impulses. The film wasn't just provocative, it was revolutionary. Its themes of free will, government control, and morality pushed cinema into dangerous new territory. Kubrick's use of surreal visuals, experimental music, and graphic storytelling left audiences both captivated and disturbed. But with groundbreaking art often comes backlash. In the UK, the film was accused of inspiring real-life copycat crimes. Disturbed parents, politicians, and media outlets demanded it be pulled from theaters. Rather than fight the mounting controversy, Kubrick himself withdrew A Clockwork Orange from circulation in Britain, where it remained unavailable for nearly 27 years. Across Europe, some countries outright banned or heavily censored it, claiming it was too dangerous for society. Ironically, these bans only fueled its mystique. Audiences across the world desperately sought bootleg copies, and A Clockwork Orange grew into a cult legend, a forbidden piece of cinema history. Today, it is hailed as one of the most daring films ever made, reminding us how far art can go in challenging morality, authority, and human nature itself. Kubrick's film didn't just shock the world, it reshaped the conversation about freedom, violence, and the limits of censorship in cinema. 2. Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. When it comes to banned European cinema, few films carry the same notorious legacy as Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom, 1975. Directed by Italian filmmaker Pier Paolo Pasolini, this movie was not just controversial, it was a direct assault on the senses, society, and political complacency of its time. Set in the final days of Mussolini's fascist regime, Salo adapts the writings of the Marquis de Sade into a brutal allegory. Instead of treating it as mere historical drama, Pasolini used shocking imagery and themes to expose the corrupting nature of absolute power, the exploitation of the vulnerable, and the dark side of authoritarianism. What made the film so infamous wasn't only its subject matter, but how unflinching Pasolini's vision was. Authorities across Europe and beyond quickly banned Salo, labeling it obscene, immoral, and too disturbing for audiences. In countries like the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, it faced decades of censorship battles. Yet, despite, or perhaps because of, this suppression, the movie became a legend among cinephiles, critics, and collectors of banned films. Tragically, Salo also became the filmmaker's last work. Pasolini was murdered shortly before its release, a grim event that only deepened the film's aura of infamy. Over the years, however, critics began to reassess Salo as more than just a shock film. Many now argue that beneath its disturbing surface lies one of the boldest political statements in cinematic history, a raw, uncompromising vision of what happens when humanity is stripped of morality. Today, Salo is not just remembered as a banned European film, it's a work that continues to spark debate about censorship, freedom of expression, and the role of cinema in confronting uncomfortable truths. 3. Love Camp 7, 1969. When it comes to controversial cinema, few films stirred as much shock and outrage as Love Camp 7, 1969. This low-budget exploitation movie from Europe became infamous for its provocative and disturbing storyline. Set during World War II, the film follows two undercover Allied female agents who infiltrate a Nazi prison camp disguised as prostitutes. Their mission? To rescue a captured scientist held by the Germans. But instead of being remembered for its espionage or wartime drama, Love Camp 7 became notorious for its graphic and unsettling content. The film blended themes of war with passion, torture, and humiliation, pushing the boundaries of what audiences in the late 1960s were prepared to see on screen. It essentially launched the Naziploitation subgenre, a controversial style of filmmaking that combined wartime settings with exploitation elements. Censorship and bans. Governments across Europe wasted no time reacting. In the United Kingdom, the film was outright banned for decades, considered obscene under strict censorship laws. Countries like Australia, Norway, and even parts of Germany also restricted years later. Love Camp 7 continued to face bans, often being denied classification entirely. Legacy. Despite being condemned by critics, the film gained a cult following, largely because of its notoriety. It became a curiosity piece for cinephiles who wanted to explore the limits of exploitation cinema. To this day, Love Camp 7 is remembered less for its filmmaking quality and more for how it challenged taboos, sparked outrage, and forced censors to debate where the line between art and obscenity should be drawn. In short, Love Camp 7 shocked audiences worldwide not just because of its content, but because it dared to test how far cinema could go in the late 60s. It remains one of the most infamous banned films of European cinema history. 4. Battle Royale, 2000. The controversial Japanese survival masterpiece. When Battle Royale hit screens in 2000, it wasn't just a movie, it was a cultural explosion. Directed by Kinji Fukasaku, the film told the story of a dystopian Japan where a classroom of students is forced into a deadly government experiment, fight to the death until only one survives. Brutal, unflinching, and disturbingly relevant, this film blurred the line between social commentary and sheer shock value. What made Battle Royale so controversial wasn't only its graphic violence, but its themes of youth rebellion, government control, and the loss of innocence. The film was banned, restricted, or heavily censored in several countries across Europe, with critics calling it irresponsible and dangerous. Many governments feared it could influence real-world violence among teens. Yet, despite its censorship battles, Battle Royale became a global cult phenomenon. Its raw storytelling, unforgettable performances, and unapologetic brutality left a mark on cinema history. In fact, it directly influenced franchises like The Hunger Games and countless survival thrillers that came after. Today, what was once banned is now hailed as a groundbreaking classic, a reminder of how cinema can challenge society, spark debate, and leave an audience both horrified and fascinated. 5. Love Camp 7, 1969. The birth of a controversial genre. When Love Camp 7 was released in 1969, it wasn't just another European exploitation film, it was the beginning of a genre that would horrify censors and ignite international outrage. Directed by Lee Frost and produced in the United States but widely distributed in Europe, the movie plunged into one of the most disturbing concepts in cinema, the Naziploitation subgenre. The story follows two female Allied agents who infiltrate a Nazi prison camp during World War II. What unfolds is a mix of espionage, exploitation, and shocking cruelties and wartime brutality in ways audiences had never seen before. At a time when European cinema was already pushing boundaries of censorship, Love Camp 7 crossed a line many countries weren't ready for. In the UK, the film was placed on the infamous Video Nasties list in the 1980s, making it illegal to sell, rent, or even publicly screen. It was outright banned in Germany and several other European countries due to its disturbing portrayal of Nazi war crimes mixed with graphic sexual content. Yet, despite its infamy, the film became a cult classic, laying the groundwork for later controversial titles like Ilsa, She-Wolf of the SS, and other extreme exploitation films. For some, it was seen as historical commentary wrapped in shock value. For others, it was pure exploitation with no redeeming value. Today, Love Camp 7 remains a highly debated piece of cinema history, an example of how far filmmakers were willing to go to grab attention, and how censorship boards struggled to control the rising tide of taboo-breaking cinema in late 1960s Europe. Whether considered trash or trailblazing, it shocked audiences across the globe and forever secured its place among the most banned films in European cinematic history. 6. The Last Temptation of Christ, 1988. When Martin Scorsese decided to adapt Nikos Kazantzakis' controversial novel The Last Temptation of Christ, he knew he was stepping into dangerous territory. This was no ordinary biblical film. It was a daring reimagining that explored the human struggles of Jesus Christ, portraying him not just as divine, but also as a man wrestling with fear, doubt, and even desire. The film's central temptation sequence, where Christ imagines living a normal life, marrying Mary Magdalene, and experiencing human love, was enough to ignite outrage across Europe. Religious leaders condemned it as blasphemy, while governments in countries such as Greece, Turkey, and even some regions of France moved to ban or restrict screenings. Protesters gathered outside theaters, and in Paris, one cinema was even firebombed during a showing. Yet despite the backlash, The Last Temptation of Christ became a powerful talking point worldwide. Some praised it for opening up new conversations about faith, morality, and the complexities of humanity within divinity. Others saw it as a dangerous challenge to sacred tradition. Decades later, the film remains a cultural lightning rod, an example of how cinema can shake the foundations of belief systems, provoke global debate, and force audiences to confront uncomfortable questions. And that's exactly why The Last Temptation of Christ stands as one of the most shocking and banned films in European cinema history. 7. In the Realm of the Senses, 1976. Few films in cinema history have sparked as much controversy as Nagisa Oshima's In the Realm of the Senses. Although a Japanese director created it, the film was co-produced with French backing, which allowed it to be distributed across Europe, where it immediately ignited scandal. The movie tells the true story of Sada Abe, a woman whose obsessive love affair with a married man in 1930s Tokyo spiraled into passion, possession, and ultimately tragedy. What made the film infamous wasn't just the storyline, but its unflinching realism. Oshima refused to use traditional cinematic tricks to suggest intimacy. Instead, he showed it without filters, something audiences in the 1970s had never seen on the big screen. Censors across Europe struggled with how to handle it. France embraced it as art, while countries like the UK, Spain, and even parts of Germany banned or heavily cut it. Critics were divided. Some hailed it as a daring masterpiece that blurred the line between art and reality, while others dismissed it as obscene. Yet, despite the uproar, In the Realm of the Senses became a landmark in film history. It forced viewers, critics, and lawmakers to confront difficult questions. Where is the boundary between art and censorship? Should governments decide what adults can watch? Today, the movie is recognized as a powerful, if deeply unsettling, exploration of human obsession. Its legacy isn't just the controversy, it's how it permanently changed conversations about censorship, freedom of expression, and the definition of art in cinema. 8. The Devils, 1971. A film too dangerous for its time. Few films in history have been as controversial, or as fiercely censored, as Ken Russell's The Devils, 1971. Based on Aldous Huxley's book The Devils of Loudun, the movie dives into a disturbing chapter of French history, blending religion, politics, and hysteria into one explosive story. At the center of the film is Father Urbain Grandier, played by Oliver Reed, a charismatic priest accused of witchcraft. When a convent of nuns, led by Vanessa Redgrave's haunting performance as Sister Jean, descend into sexual hysteria and false accusations, The result is a shocking trial that exposes the dangers of religious extremism and government corruption. From the start, the Devils outraged audiences and critics alike. Graphic imagery of torture and blasphemous religious iconography led to bans across several countries in Europe, including the UK, where even Warner Brothers heavily cut the film before release. Some nations like Italy and Ireland outright prohibited it, calling it an assault on faith and morality. But beneath the controversy lies a powerful message. Russell wasn't trying to mock religion, but to highlight how political manipulation and blind fanaticism can destroy lives. This fearless critique made the film both groundbreaking and dangerous for its time. Even today, The Devils remains one of the most censored films ever produced. A complete, uncut version has rarely been seen, and its notoriety has only fueled its cult status. Modern critics now hail it as a masterpiece of historical horror, proving that what once shocked the world can later be recognized as essential art. 9. Irreversible, 2002. Disturbing masterpiece that broke all boundaries. Few films in modern cinema history have caused as much outrage and debate as Gaspar Noé's Irreversible. Released in 2002, this French psychological thriller turned the entire movie world upside down with its shocking style and deeply unsettling subject matter. The film tells the story of a brutal assault and its devastating consequences, but in reverse chronological order. What begins as chaotic violence slowly unfolds into a heartbreaking tale of love, innocence, and loss. This storytelling technique not only forced audiences to confront trauma from the end back to the beginning but also made the emotional impact far more devastating. What truly shocked viewers, and led to bans in several countries, was Noé's unflinching commitment to realism. A 9-minute, unbroken assault scene, paired with raw depictions of rage, grief, and revenge, left audiences disturbed and divided. Some hailed it as a bold work of art, while others condemned it as exploitative and unbearable to watch. Critics at the Cannes Film Festival reported walkouts, fainting, and even angry protests. Despite this, the film gained a cult following, praised for its technical brilliance, including long single takes, dizzying camera work, and a haunting performance by Monica Bellucci. Banned in countries like South Korea and Malaysia, and heavily censored in others, Irreversible remains one of the most controversial European films ever made. It challenged not only censorship boards but also audiences, forcing them to question where the line between art and obscenity truly lies. Even today, more than 2 decades later, Irreversible is discussed as a film that you don't just watch, you endure. Whether considered a masterpiece or a cinematic nightmare, it has secured its place in film history as one of the most unforgettable, banned, and debated European films of all time. Few films in cinema history have stirred as much outrage as Cannibal Holocaust, a 1980 Italian exploitation shocker that earned its reputation as one of the most banned movies of all time. Directed by Ruggero Deodato, the film tells the story of a documentary crew that ventures deep into the Amazon rainforest only to disappear under mysterious circumstances. What unfolds is a disturbing mix of raw jungle survival, tribal encounters, and extreme violence that left audiences horrified. When it premiered, many believed the film was a real-life force to prove in court that his actors were alive. The controversy only deepened because the movie contains scenes of actual animal killings, sparking global outrage and leading to bans across Europe, including the UK. Cannibal Holocaust became a cult classic. Today, critics argue that beneath its shocking surface lies a biting social commentary on Western exploitation, sensationalist media, and the blurred line between entertainment and reality. The film remains banned or heavily censored in several countries to this day, yet its legacy endures as one of the most infamous movies ever made, feared, studied, and endlessly debated. 11. Pink Flamingos, 1972. John Waters' outrageous cult classic. When it comes to films that shocked audiences and pushed censorship boards to their limits, few are as infamous as Pink Flamingos, 1972. Directed by the underground legend John Waters, This American independent film became a cult classic across Europe, not just for its bizarre storyline, but for its unapologetic embrace of the grotesque, the rebellious, and the downright shocking. The film follows the eccentric character Divine, a drag queen determined to prove she is the filthiest person alive. What follows is a surreal, outrageous competition of depravity that challenged every notion of good taste in cinema. With its shocking humor, bizarre characters, and transgressive imagery, Pink Flamingos was never meant to be mainstream. It was designed to shock, provoke, and rebel against traditional filmmaking. Across Europe, censors didn't quite know what to do with this movie. In countries like the UK, Australia, and parts of Scandinavia, the film was outright banned for years, considered too obscene for public screenings. Yet, those very bans fueled its underground reputation. Midnight screenings, bootleg copies, and word of mouth among rebellious youth turned it into a cult sensation, inspiring countless filmmakers to challenge boundaries of art and censorship. Today, Pink Flamingos is recognized as one of the boldest independent films ever made, a raw, unapologetic piece of cinema that asks audiences to question what art really is. Whether you find it disgusting, hilarious, or groundbreaking, there's no denying its place in film history. 12. Matador, 1986. A dark dance of passion and death. Pedro Almodóvar, one of Spain's most provocative directors, morality, but with Matador, 1986, he truly stunned audiences worldwide. This erotic psychological thriller follows Diego, a retired bullfighter obsessed with death, and Maria, a mysterious woman who finds their paths collide in a twisted romance where love, desire, and death intertwine in shocking ways. The film shocked Europe because it dared to link passion with violence in a way that felt disturbingly real. Themes of eroticism, religious guilt, and the connection between Matador too controversial for many censors. In countries like Italy and Ireland, screenings were restricted, while others demanded heavy cuts before release. Critics at the time accused it of glorifying violence and perversion, but Almodóvar insisted it was a metaphor for Spain's cultural history of bullfighting, where beauty, danger, and death are always side by side. Despite the backlash, Matador became a cult classic, cementing Almodóvar's reputation as a fearless filmmaker unafraid to explore human darkness. Today, it's studied not just as a banned film, but as an artistic statement about desire, morality, and the blurred line between life and death. 13. Antichrist, Denmark, 2009. When it comes to shocking cinema, few films have pushed boundaries quite like Antichrist. Directed by Lars von Trier, this 2009 Danish psychological horror instantly divided critics and audiences worldwide. The story begins with a couple, played by Willem Dafoe and Charlotte Gainsbourg, who retreat to a remote cabin in the woods after the devastating loss of their young son. What starts as a grief, pain, and human nature at its darkest. What truly set Antichrist apart were its graphic depictions of violence presented in ways that many viewers found deeply unsettling. The film combined art house beauty with brutal horror, weaving shocking imagery into themes of despair, chaos, and the destructive forces of nature. In several countries across Europe, the movie sparked outrage. Censors labeled it as blasphemous, obscene, and dangerously extreme. Some theaters outright refused to screen it, while others only allowed heavily edited versions. Despite, or perhaps because of, its controversy, Antichrist became a defining example of how European cinema often dares to confront taboos Hollywood would never touch. Yet, beneath the shock value lies a film layered with symbolism, asking profound questions about grief, love, and the darkness within the human soul. For some, it's a work of art. For others, an unwatchable provocation. Either way, Antichrist cemented its place in film history as one of the most banned, debated, and unforgettable European films of the 21st century. And that's a wrap on today's countdown of 13 banned European films that shocked the world. These movies didn't just entertain, they challenged society, sparked debate, and proved that cinema can be as controversial as it is powerful. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to Globewise Entertainment for more deep dives into hidden gems, banned classics, and the untold stories of Hollywood and beyond. Now it's your turn. Which banned European film shocked you the most? Drop your answer in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Until next time, keep watching, keep exploring, and keep the magic of cinema alive.